We all get it wrong sometimes. Absolutely, to err is human. Everybody makes a mistake, and brands will get it wrong sometimes. It's never comfortable being on the receiving end of that email that says, you've messed up and I'm unhappy about it. But what matters is how you deal with that complaint, how you respond. Do you pretend you never saw it, or do you acknowledge the fault, correct the error if you can, commit to doing better next time? If you do that, then the chances are actually pretty high that the person who complained originally is going to walk away feeling satisfied, perhaps even respecting you for the way you dealt with the problem. But if you chose not to respond, if you ignored them, if you promised to follow up but then never delivered it, you're only going to make them more unhappy than they were when they first approached you. And Wendy, sadly, that is a lesson that a good number of customer services managers just haven't learned yet.
Absolutely. And where I come in as a member of the media is when customers have reached a point with their service providers, companies that they have given their custom to, right?
Yeah.
Then they would come to somebody like myself, and I take up the case as a formal media query. And yes, it's never nice for the company to get that. I mean, a lot of they tell me, for the record, it ruins their day when they see my name in the inbox. And I get that. And I'm all about empowering the consumer and getting justice and all those good things, right? So most companies, I'm happy to report, do engage. Sometimes they ignore some of the more uncomfortable questions, and I have to go back and say, what about this one? And then they say, we're not at liberty to respond, or words to that effect.
Yeah.
Or, it might take quite a bit of prodding on my part to get a response. But then you get those that just stonewall you altogether. You just
don't engage.
Don't get a response at all, which doesn't reflect well at all, of course.
And we're highlighting two cases like that this week, unfortunately, where listeners came to us because they just got nowhere trying to deal with their complaints on their own, only to then have Wendy have the same experience of getting the cold shoulder and not making any progress. Wendy, do you want to just start by introducing the first bit?
Okay, so the first case I did after much, I just decided I wasn't going to give up. So there was a result in the end. But if I hadn't, I would still not have an answer quite clearly. So the first case was it has to do with something that we've spoken about in a previous show or shows, Pippa, around fixed-term contracts. And you've had personal experience of this as well. So a lot of people make the wrong assumption that when it comes to the end of their contract date, on this, so it's not say it's 2 years. Say the 2 years is up in August 2023 or July 2023. They make the mistake of thinking, "Yippee! I'm out of jail. My liabilities to this company are going to automatically disappear. The contract's going to automatically end because look what it says on my contract. It ends on this date." Only to discover later that thanks to the Consumer Protection Act, the contract, if you do not proactively submit cancellation notification with a month's notice. In other words, if your contract was ending at the end of August this month, you had to send your notification, your cancellation notification, if you don't want to be billed in September as well. So it'll be a month from the time, it will be all over, a month from the date that you phone or email your notice. Cancellation. So a lot of people don't realize that, and they end up paying a lot longer. Sometimes it takes months for them to notice that debit on their bank statement. And often, it's not just that it's continuing, it's that the rate changes. And when you bring it up, they say, oh, that's special that you were on. Came to an end at the end of that. They call it an initial period, hopefully, because you must upgrade or you must renew.
Okay, so this is where we sit with our listener, Elgin, who emailed us in mid-May already to query this issue. He wrote to say, I have a Cell C data SIM contract that expired, and I wasn't notified about it. Instead of cancelling my contract, they continued to bill me double the amount. Is this even legal? He says, I did not ask for the data to be sent to the SIM. I didn't use all the data over the months it was still being allocated. I was getting 100 gigabytes a day and 100 gigabytes a night each month. I was under the impression that when my contract ended, the SIM would change to a pay-as-you-go. Please, can you assist me? Wendy, what feedback did you get?
Okay, so I explained about the need to cancel, as I've just discussed, and then I told him this. By law, that's the good old CPA again, companies selling fixed-term contracts, such as cell phone contracts, gym contracts, they're required to inform subscribers 40 to 80 days before the end of the so-called initial term. And they can do this it has to be a recordable form, so they can't make you do it by phone or make you do it by email. It just has to be recordable, and they do record their calls, right? So
Okay.
I have had cases when of people being told, no, that cancellation wasn't valid because you didn't do it our way. That's nonsense. So don't fall for that. Okay. So before 40 to 80 days before the end of the initial term, they must contact you to tell you that the contract term is coming to an end and tell you what your options are. In other words, if you don't cancel in writing or phone us to cancel, it'll go on to a month-to-month basis. Your subscription will increase too, as in Elgin's case. Anything else that pertains to it.
So you asked Elgin whether he'd received anything like that by email, by SMS, any communication from Cell C saying, hey, your contract's coming to an end, either cancel or this is what will happen and let us know what you want. You asked him specifically, did he receive anything like that? And his answer was no. He said, I get my invoices via email. I've gone through all my emails from Cell C and I have found absolutely nothing about my contract coming to an end or any indication of new monthly prices. So this is where you took it up with Cell C, Wendy?
I did, and this is going back to around May 19. In fact, it was May the 19th, 4 days after my first email from Elgin. And so I asked, how and when did you notify Elgin about this in terms of your legal responsibility to do so? After some waiting and prodding, further emails, I got this. Content of SMS. So they're telling me that they sent him an SMS saying, Dear valued customer, Cell C has reviewed its contract pricing for the first time since 2019 and will be effecting a price increase from the 1st of December. They're going on about how this is the first increase in 3 years. So I wrote back and said, that is a general notification of a price increase. It's not the notification I was referring to, which the CPA requires you to send. Did you send that one? So now that was, I don't know when that was, but bearing in mind the first time I asked was May the 19th.
So by the 14th of June, a full month after Elgin had raised this case with you, you still hadn't had a response from them because you'd gone back to them saying, what you've sent me is not what we're looking for. Did you or did you not inform this customer that his contract was coming to an end and engage with him about his options? And by the 14th of June, you still hadn't had any response from Cell C on that further query. Now, I just want to recap here again what Wendy said they are meant to have done. They are meant to have sent him some kind of notification that, hey, your contract is coming to an end. Secondly, if you want to cancel, you need to let us know in some kind of recordable form. Thirdly, if you don't cancel, these are going to be the changes going forward in the way your contract is built. And if the customer, this is what the CPA states, that if the customer has not expressly contacted the brand and said, it is my desire to end this contract, or it is my desire to let it continue to roll on a month-to-month basis. If they have not done that, only then is it automatically continued on the terms that they are meant to have communicated to you. And Wendy, you've said to me in our correspondence earlier today that is a requirement that the law says is there, but that's very widely flouted by industry in general.
It is, and you had personal experience of this, I remember, because what they often do is they'll send it, but they will dress it up as a marketing exercise, or a marketing, as a pitch, which is not supposed to be. It's supposed to be all about the contract that you've signed that is coming to an end, and this is what you are required to do. And if you don't do it, it'll go on to month to month. And also, many people, although perhaps not so much because you get those calls months in advance to say you qualify for an upgrade, but you might not remember, and that's even the thing with early upgrades. They don't tell you your 2 years is actually only up in August, but here we are in June saying, do you want to upgrade? You qualify to upgrade, and they leave out the bit that those 2 months don't disappear. But
yes, you're going to pay for both.
Exactly. So this notification is also about just reminding people 2 years on or 3 years on exactly when their contract officially ends, and these are your options. So anyway, I persisted with Cell C. I got an email on the 19th of June saying, we've all away with the long weekend, the 16th
come
of
on.
June. Yeah, the media people were away. We are currently following this up with our fraud department.
It wasn't a fraud. It was never.
I do take up a lot of fraud
construed.
cases, but this wasn't one of them. So that smacked of a copy and paste response.
Yeah.
I said to them, and then I was fed up. I said to them on the 27th of June, I said, I'm not going to let this one go. Please respond by close of business tomorrow, failing which I will have no choice but to conclude that the required notification was not sent, at least in this case.
Okay, so just to bear in mind, you started this inquiry on the 19th of May. That ultimatum that you gave them was more than a month later on the 27th of June. And it had all those to and fro emails in between where they were sending you from pillar to post and not actually answering the question you were asking. But when you did issue that ultimatum, you did then get a response, didn't you, finally?
I did. Same day, we sincerely apologize for the inconvenience caused, which, that's just a trite, meaningless thing that corporates use that doesn't say sorry like they mean it. Then the customer was not informed ahead of time, admission, and here's what they said they were doing about it. A credit of R1,821.23 has been passed for discounts not loaded in the months of March, April, and May 2023.
Okay, so finally an acknowledgement that they did in fact get it wrong, that notification was not sent. A very mealy-mouthed apology, as you say, but most importantly, the credit. So putting back to rights
the game was
the financial.
up. And I must admit, there are many cases that I don't have the capacity to keep on and on and on. That just fall by the wayside because I, like the consumers who've complained to me, just get worn out or just lack the capacity. There's, in my case, so many new cases coming in, this backwards and forwards and constantly, trying to keep
them.
tabs on where they are the response. So it was gratifying in the end, but I raised this case first of all because this is not the way to deal with a genuine, formal media complaint, let alone the issue that raised by the customer
Not
directly with them. Exactly. And also, to stress the point that the cell phone industry can't only embrace the bits of the CPA that work for them. That is the need for subscribers to formally cancel a fixed-term contract, to avoid it living on in the form of a month-to-month contract until they do realize and then issue that cancellation.
Yeah.
The need for proper notification to be sent to their customers as their contract draws closer to an end, reminding them of that and what they need to do and the consequences of doing nothing, is equally important. They can't do one without the other because the other one is more tricky. They really don't want you. They really want to. I'm sorry to say this, but I think after 25 years of covering these cases, they really want your contract just to roll over without you realizing. So I think it's for people who sit with cell phone contracts to be mindful of this. And if it did auto renew or go on to month to month, ask them when you do realize it. Ask them, where was my 40 to 80 day notification? I want to see it, and if they can't produce it, you are in a very strong position to say, well, these charges were legitimate then, because you didn't comply with that section of the CPA.
You didn't advise me there was going to be an increase.
And certainly advise me. I'm very interested in taking these cases up because I think there is a widespread flouting of this, or at least doing it in a way that's not in the spirit of the Act.
Well, listen to this, which confirms what you've just said. Michael says, in all the years I've had a cell phone contract, I don't ever remember getting a reminder that my contract is ending. I know my contract is ending when I start getting calls from Telkom Mobile offering me to renew early.
But that's not compliant with what the Act says. Remember I said they'll dress it up as a marketing, trying to sell you more things. That's not what this section of the CPA says. It says you've got to notify them and tell them these certain things. It's not that can't be construed as being, hello, you qualified for an upgrade. Your contract ends on this date. If you don't want it to continue, you need to cancel by this date. We need a 30-day notice period. That's full disclosure, and that's what the Act is all about. Yeah. This is nonsense what they're doing and getting away with it because too few people realize what the CPA requires them to do. I'm going to go on a bit of a tirade about this issue in future and asking all of them. I mean, I have asked all of them over the years separately, but I really want consumers. The only way you can change this is for consumers to know what their rights are and to insist that they are honoured.
You know, Wendy, I'm sitting here thinking I've been with MTN since I was 19 years old. So it's quite a while now, shall we say. In all those decades, I don't think, okay, and admittedly the CPA didn't exist for all of them, but certainly in the years since the
12
CPA
years.
came in 12 years ago, I don't think I've ever had that call. Ever,
Let's hear,
couched
has
as
anybody-
clearly as that.
I don't think they do it. But if anyone has had one of those calls where they thought, "Wow, that's lovely to know, thank you," and I actually didn't want to renew that one. It's a data contract I haven't used for a while, and now I know, I must give that 30 days. If anyone's had one of those calls or emails or SMSs, we'd really like to hear from you, and you could read it out, and it'd be lovely to give credit where it's due.
Absolutely. Let's highlight the exception who is doing what they're meant to do. Lou, just to confirm, yes, if that contract rolls over, it rolls over on a month-to-month basis. Wendy, it can't be renewed for another fixed term.
No, that's what this section of the Act was introduced to stop. In the old days, they could renew it for a full new period. All contracts, such as your private security at your home and all of that, they would just renew it for another full period. So no, after your initial period, so call it that first contract period, you're only in for an extra 30 days once you know about it. But the clock to you finally being free of it starts from the day you cancel. You another month essentially
To get yourself out of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
but until you actually tender, you are still liable on a monthly basis. It won't auto stop. You have to proactively, which is counterintuitive. You think there's the end date, it's done, but no. And the argument they gave when the legislators were, working on the consumer protection bill, as it then was no, the poor consumers, if they don't realize and they're in an emergency situation and then they try and make a call, they don't realize that their service just cuts off, that won't work for them. And so the legislators went, okay, this is what we'll do.
The way around it is to give them a 1 month
Yes.
rollover window. Okay. WhatsApp saying I've had exactly the same runaround from MTN, even though I did give them 1 month's notice before the end. It took a further 2 months to wrangle my number away from them, not to mention all the wasted debit orders. Another
Should
one
have got
saying,
that money back.
Yeah, I hope you did. I had exactly the same problem with Cell C, says Anonymous. I got a huge shock when I was charged 3 times what I previously paid for my data contract. I got 0 notification, not by email, not on my primary contact number. I haven't checked if they might have sent an SMS to that SIM card because it's in a router, not in a cell phone. So there's black mark for Cell C, black mark for MTN, black mark for Telkom Mobile before the break. Carlos says, I had an account with Vox and had 3 months free. I cancelled my account in the first 2 months, still got billed on the 4th month. They wouldn't refund the payment. I had to go through various channels and finally an ISP mediation process, which helped me get a refund after a 3-month wait.
Oh, but the point is you shouldn't have to go through that whole battle, and a lot of people just don't have the stomach for it.
Yeah, and just let it go. So, okay, take heart.
You see, but for me, the bottom line is, with all these things, if they in their hearts, they wanted to comply with the intention of that provision of the CPA about, between 40 and 80 days, let people know your contract's coming to an end and what the consequences of doing something or doing nothing are.
Yeah.
They communicate that in a very clear way without tacking on these are the upgrades available, without just doing it without any branding or trying to sell you something.
Just clean and
Maybe in a
simple.
separate mail, say whatever. And if you respond and say I want to renew, then fine, send this, do the sales call, whatever. There needs to be some integrity around this process. We all need these services. We all going to sign up. Just do it in an honourable way, and then people will want to stick with you. They might temporarily go to another service provider and think, actually, I always say letting go graciously is that doesn't happen easily, but it fosters, loyalty. It fosters a good feeling about the company. So I wish I could wave a wand and make it happen, and I can't. So all I can do is bang on about it as often as I can.
Well, I'm happy to say we've had one customer who has been informed. Let's take a listen to the voice note.
Hi, I've never had a problem from Vodacom. They always inform me weeks before the contract is going to end. So Vodacom seems to be on top of things. Thanks, Shirley.
That's very, very
Okay.
good to know. I believe we have a caller on the line who's also saying they have received that notification. Theo, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I got a message from MTN on the 28th of June saying, Yellow, you are ready to upgrade. If you don't, this contract will change from X to Y on a month-to-month term on the 26th of the 9th, and your current promo will also expire.
Okay, so they did give you
It's
the
hard-
information, but it came with a sales pitch.
I don't mind
Always.
that,
Yeah.
but it should also say if you're going to cancel, you need to give us 30 days notice. I think that would have made it fully
Completely
compliant
compliant.
and full disclosure for you. But yes, thank you for that. That's certainly an improvement.
Thanks, Theo.
on
Appreciate
previous.
the call.
Yes.
And let's give credit where credit is due. So that's two examples where it did happen. So it's not nobody receiving it, but that does seem like the exception in a rather large pool of those who didn't get that notification. You can keep on telling us about that. By the way, the person saying, how do I raise a cell phone issue with Wendy? You send an email to consumer@knowler.co.za, KNOWLER. Put Cape Talk in the subject line and cell phone issue or whatever it is, just a word or two designating the nature of the problem. And then please remember to send all relevant details in a single email. Don't leave out account numbers, the dates the contract ran, etc. Please just put all of the relevant info into that initial approach to Wendy and send it to consumer@knowler.co.za. Okay, we've got another lucky one. B saying, I received an SMS this morning from Celsi telling me that my contract is coming to an end next month. I must be one of the lucky ones. Indeed you are, B. Thank you.
Good to know. Maybe they're upping their game, and this was a
wake-up call.
yeah.
Somebody else making a fair point, Wendy, saying, I feel consumers must take some responsibility by diarising these things. It is our problem too. Do you think that's a fair comment?
I do, but I think, that's fine within the year, but we've now sitting with, I suppose you can do it electronically, but we've, contracts that are 2 or 3 years, I hear you, and I'm all for, we have rights, responsibilities along with rights that we need to exercise, but these are long contracts, and I think human nature, within the year, yes, fine. Okay, I must service my car by the end of November, of course.
Yeah.
And please do check when you need to service your car. But a long contract like this, I think that's the reason why the law
Was written the way it was.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Requires the companies to tell you.
Okay. Now, let's move away from the cell phones and onto a second case. It's a completely different subject, but it's the same kind of frustrating process of the person not getting any joy and then handing it on to Wendy, and Wendy struggling to get a media response as well. And this time we're looking to the Cape Town International parking area. The company involved is Servest, which manages the parking areas on behalf of AXA at Cape Town International. And if you've ever made the mistake of parking in the wrong parking section, Wendy's raised her hand, I've raised my hand, Altino, my producer's raised his hand, you will know it can be a very, very costly mistake.
And you only make it once.
You only ever make it once. There are very differing parking structures for each particular designated space, and with good reason, because some are meant for long-term parking, some are meant for a quick pop in and out. But this is a really frustrating case. Nicholas Litton wrote to us in early June, telling us his son had been legitimately overcharged. He had parked in P4, which, if you know the airport, is one of the shaded parking lots designated for shorter term parking, but he was charged at the rates for P5, which is the long-term parking. And if you ever use that facility, you will know that if you park there for several days, it works out at a cost-effective option. But if you are there for a short period, it is not. They charge extremely high rates for the first period. In fact, it's over 1,000 Rand in the first 5 days, no matter how long you park there. I did a quick calculation. I opened up the AXA app on my phone and did a parking calculation, Wendy. And if I was to go this afternoon, as soon as the show had finished, and park for 1 hour
They
in
charge
P5,
you 1,400 Rand.
I would be
40
charged
Rand.
1,040 Rand. So
Yes.
this is the mistake that was made by the operator. Nicholas had legitimately parked in P4, but he was charged at P5. And that transaction left him with just 100 Rand in his bank account, and he could barely make it home. His father was very, very upset. So Nicholas contacted the company to say, hey, you owe my son a refund. And then he wrote to us, eventually, because he said, despite numerous emails, sending them all the information, I was made to feel like a liar and a cheat. I still don't have the refund. I've had to keep on chasing. There is just no effort to resolve this situation quickly. And what had happened was that essentially Servist were continuing to insist that his son had parked in P5. But after a week of back and forth emails, he finally received an email acknowledging that that was not the case. Nicholas shared with us the mail from a Servist employee saying, "Please accept my apologies. I have been viewing the wrong camera all along. You guys came into P4. I viewed the camera at that pay point. I see that your son was struggling with his ticket and pressed the help button for assistance. The controller most probably keyed in the wrong car park number." But by this point, Nicholas was properly angry. And Wendy, it's a great example again of how to turn a complaint either into a win or into a big loss. And in this case, all they did was make him angrier than he was, because he by now felt he was owed more than just an apology. He asked for the matter to be escalated to management. He asked for a full refund of the entire amount and an apology for the way he had been treated. Then he was initially told, "We will refund you 330 Rand. So he went away and he did his calculations. He went, hang on a sec. That's not the discrepancy here. If we are just being refunded the difference between what he should have paid and what he did paid, that amount should be closer to 500 Rand. So why should I accept 330 Rand? And it was at that point he contacted Wendy with his calculations. Wendy, what happened when you took it up?
Okay, at that stage he hadn't received anything.
Yeah.
So on the 12th of June, which is a month ago?
A month ago today, yeah.
I sent a media query to Servist about the matter, asking how it was possible that over the course of 5-6 days and several emails from Nicholas querying the parking overcharge, he was repeatedly consulting the wrong camera footage. The obvious conclusion is that had he given up in the course of those days, as many arguably would have, the overcharge would not have been acknowledged or corrected. How do you respond to that? And please, could you substantiate your refund calculation of 330 Rand, given that Nicholas maintains that the refund should be closer to 500 Rand? Has any refund been paid to date? If so, what amount and when? And if not, why not? And will that figure be revised closer to 500 Rand?
So that was the 12th of June, exactly a month ago today. Wendy, what response?
I keep checking, thinking this can't actually be real. And I've actually, interesting enough, in May, I sent emails to the same two people about another case, someone who'd done what we've just been talking about. First time traveling out of Cape Town, first flight, emergency flight to Joburg just for the day. And when he came back that evening, he parked in P5 by mistake.
He parked in the wrong. He had legitimately made a mistake.
He had, absolutely. Yeah. And when it came up, it was late. He wanted to get home. He was in a bit of a shock. And he paid it with his credit card. And then he thought, no. And he immediately tried to contest it. And they said, I must admit, to be fair, this was 4 years ago that it happened to me. And it was literally, I'd arrived in Cape Town to settle on the weekend. And on the Monday, I had to fly to Joburg for business. And I parked in P5. When I came back that day, I nearly had a heart attack, and some kind Cape Townian said to me, "You know what, go back into the terminal building, just explain what happened. Sometimes they take pity." And the woman did. But in this guy's case, he'd already paid, and then they wouldn't budge. So I think fair to say in my case, and maybe in others, if you contest it before you pay, you might
have some luck.
Yeah. I think I was genuinely tearful. It had been a long day. I just had a big move, and it was
an honest mistake.
It was, and with everybody, it's an honest mistake. But anyway,
the difference. Sorry to interrupt, but the difference in this case is there was no mistake. He had, in fact, not even parked in that space. He'd been charged
absolutely
incorrectly
in Nicholas's case.
Nicholas's case, so he absolutely was owed that refund.
Oh yes, but the point is, I took up the other case, and it was the same two people. So I know that the emails are valid. I know they've responded to me before. Well, sort of. They responded to this poor chap that wanted some of a part refund. And they just sent me a copy to me and said, the disclosure's fine. Here's the sign. Sorry for you.
You don't get it.
So anyway, they chose not to respond. And, I said, I always like to, I don't just leave it. I said, please, no, I'm giving you the right of reply. I think 2 extra emails at least. So they didn't respond. Nicholas also raised issues with others, which others have raised with me. And as a frequent traveler, I know as well that the machines often don't work. The credit card payments often don't work, especially, at night. It's dark. The lighting there is terrible. They really could just generally. We can't be using COVID, no money story anymore.
Yeah.
It's 2023. Just invest a little bit of money in upgrading that whole payment experience for the consumer, especially those that come in at night, which in winter it's very hard not to arrive back from a business trip when it's light. And it's not a really pleasant experience. I've never come back and found someone not struggling to pay, and just being delayed there unnecessarily. And you can't see, and you got your cell phone flashlight out.
And you're trying to read.
It's
No,
not great.
That's not great from a security perspective.
No.
Really, that's awful. Okay, so just to recap where we are, in Nicholas's case, there has been no response whatsoever. We're now more than a month. It's a month today since Wendy contacted them. It's well past a month since Nicholas raised the case with them. He still doesn't have his refund, Wendy, and we still haven't got an explanation.
I have to. Okay. We haven't got an explanation, but when I did contact Nicholas shortly before I went on leave, so last day of June, he said, yes, I said, have you been refunded? He said, yes and no. There's an issue with my son's bank account that's on their side, but he was hopeful that he would get a refund, and we were all assuming it would be the lower amount. I tried to get hold of him today, and he hasn't seen my email, obviously, but I think it's fair to say he is going to get some refund. It was just the whole way it was handled and the days of them being made to feel like you have to be lying. This is not possible. This is what happened.
When
and
someone
then
was
finally,
looking at the wrong camera.
admittedly, they did say must apologize, but that it fell a bit short for him, especially as there were now questions around the amount. Wouldn't you just, in that situation, given that they catch so many of us who, 1,040 Rand for, a day, less than a day, just say, how bad, we put you through this, have your 1,040 Rand back. Really, just have grace when you've messed up. Have a bit of grace.
I wonder if anybody else listening has had the struggles here around the parking at the airport, and maybe you want to share with us how it was handled, if you made the mistake or if you were poorly charged, and maybe you had a different experience trying to engage with them. Gavin writing in to say, airport parking, off goes the plane with our dad and our parking tickets. We were left behind to haggle with security for so-called intrusive parking. You can understand how easily that can happen, Wendy. And again, I mean, it's fine. If you've parked in the space, you are obliged to pay the money designated for the amount of time that you were occupying that space. And if it is, I get that. But, you can imagine in that location at airport where people are coming and going, I would imagine it probably happens quite often that somebody flies off with the parking ticket in their pocket.
There is a flip side to that, obviously, because if your car was stolen and without a parking ticket, you would be, where are the security measures? Blah, blah, blah. So there's always a flip side to it, but it's also the way things are handled. You can't immediately assume that this family is,
lying, trying to crook the system.
Yes, exactly. So it's all about training and about attitude in those cases. And let's not forget, I've given some customer service training to people who work in airports. People often are under stress. You've got nervous flyers, you've got flyers, you've got people traveling to loved ones' funerals, you've got business meetings. It's a powder keg. People are much less tolerant of insensitive service, shall I say, in that environment. And they do get it, but it doesn't always filter down to the right response at the right time.
Wendy, thanks for raising these cases, and let's hope that eventually Nicholas gets the refund for the full amount that is due to him, which is the difference between what they should have paid and what he was billed.
I'm pretty sure it has been done.
If nothing else, that at least
if it hasn't, we'll come back next week.
Yeah, okay. Right, we've got about 5 minutes left. And Wendy, maybe we should just skip ahead to the follow-up on the Pick and Pay pricing, if we may, because I know this was an issue that came up just before I went away.
Yes, so we didn't chat about it together.
Literally hours before I left, we got an email from a listener very upset because her local Pick and Pay table view had dropped the listing of a price per kilogram on the shelf labeling. And Wendy, I know you picked up on that while I was away, but then earlier today we heard from another listener about Pick and Pay in Long Beach Mall, Sun Valley resident, saying, hey, this has disappeared as well. Liz wrote in to say it's something she's always been aware of, because I love the way she wrote it. She said, I'm horrified to admit I am old enough to remember when individual pricing on items changed to pricing on the shelf. And yeah, in fact, so am I, Liz. So she's always been mindful of it. Her mother taught her to always check the unit price rather than the total price of the item. She said it's something she's been emphatic about teaching her own children to do. And she said, I always thought that was written into the Consumer Protection Act that it had to be disclosed. Now she says our local Pick and Pay at Long Beach Mall recently changed their price labeling system and the unit prices are no longer displayed. I spoke to the manager about 6 weeks ago and pointed out that it felt purposefully misleading. He actually agreed with me, she said, and said he would look into it. But nothing has happened. And she then went on to write how she had such a tough struggle. She and her teenage daughter went into the Pick and Pay. They were trying to compare the prices on different boxes of tampons. And she said, we sat there with a calculator, typing in, dividing, trying to work out the price per unit. And she said we had to repeat that process multiple times through their visit, which was obviously exhausting and frustrating. So her question, Wendy, was, is it required by the CPA to display a price per kilogram? And what do we do to flag on campaign and push back against this disappearing from the Pick and Pay labeling? Okay, so I didn't hear the answer. I know you reached out to Pick and Pay. Is it something that is gone for good?
Well, let's hope not, because unit pricing is a real boon a real tool for consumers to compare prices with products shrinking.
Yeah.
They might all look the same, but the smaller packs obviously going to be more expensive per gram or kilogram. No, it's not a requirement in terms of the CPA, and I don't think it is in any part of the world, but I know certainly the consumer organisation in Australia has been campaigning hard for it to be mandatory. So it's not, but Pick and Pay and the ShopRite group, so Checkers and ShopRite, do display, along with the selling price of the product. Usually in the bottom left corner, there will be, Checkers does it per 100 grams, and Pick and Pay was doing it per kilogram. It's fantastic. Once you start doing it, it's addictive. It really is essential for any savvy shopper to do that, unless you're going to do it with a calculator. Anyway, the answer I got from Pick and Pay when I queried this last month was, we are moving to a new shelf edge label system called ECS, which allows us to put promotions onto the shelf edge label. So they've done this huge investment for marketing purposes. Okay, fair enough. But the unit price fell off. I mean, I'm sorry, I just can't believe this. Currently, I was told by Pick and Pay, half our stores have old labels reflecting price per unit or kilogram, and half have new labels which don't. We are in the process of fixing the new label to include the unit price.
So the intention is to bring it back again?
Yes. They've not said by when. I mean, this is just new, how this was overlooked. I mean, it's something that I've given Pick and Pay and the ShopRite Group credit for so many times over the years. Really is a wonderful service, given that it's not legally required. It's not compulsory. You don't see it on Spar. You don't see it in Pick and Pay. You see it in those two groups. And how fantastic was that? So I don't know if it was an oversight, or let's hope it wasn't an oversight, because that would be really disappointing. We're going to start marketing to you, and we're going to take away a really strong consumer tool in the process. That just wouldn't sit well.
That it was deliberate rather than an accident.
We don't know. We can't know. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and just say that I'm going to be monitoring this issue very closely. And
two interesting WhatsApps in already. Somebody's saying Pick and Pay used to do two things really well: unit pricing and the Fresh Living magazine. Both are gone. I'm so over it. Irene's saying the same has happened at the Gardens branch. It is so irritating. So again, they've said they intend to fix it and that they will bring back that, but there's no commitment to buy when.
The wording is not, which I often get, which is meant to sound encouraging, but really isn't all that. I normally get, we will attempt to, or something to that. This one actually says, we are in the process of fixing it. So I'm going to hold them to that and report back, hopefully in the not too distant future, that all is well, that unit prices are on all these electronic tags.
And to those who are complaining about its absence, if you spot it back in your local store, please do let us know. Okay, so we can feed that back to the rest of the audience, that they have made good on that promise that it will be reintroduced.
Lunch with Pippa Hudson
on Cape Talk.